currency that's circulating in the country is 10 bucks. Okay? So with $10, you can buy one pizza. But now, let's say that the Federal Reserve, because of their inflationary policies, decides that we're not going to limit the amount of dollars in the economy to the amount of gold we have. Instead, we're going to increase the amount of dollars that we have in the economy, let's just say to $11, right? Oops, $11. You still only have the $10, right? Why are we going to use you? The Federal Reserve prints up this extra dollar and has this extra dollar, okay? Now there's $11 in the economy, not 10. There's still only one pizza because the Fed didn't go out and make any more pizzas. The Fed didn't go out and add production to the economy to compensate for the dollar that it printed up. The Fed just printed up an extra dollar because they're authorized to do so by Congress. There's a Federal Reserve Act that came out in 1913 that authorizes, was approved by Congress, that authorizes the Federal Reserve to print money on behalf of the United States. So now Meyer still only has $10, but there is now $11 in the economy because the Federal Reserve printed up an extra dollar. Well, now the pizza maker still only made one pizza, but now that there's $11 in the economy and he represents all the production, now that pizza is going to cost $11. But if you're Meyer and you only have $10, you're not going to get the whole pizza anymore. Now you're only going to get 10/11ths of the pizza, which is about 91% of the pizza. And the Federal Reserve is going to take the other 9%, put it over here. The Federal Reserve is going to take the other 9% of the pizza. This is the most basic thing that you can think of when you're thinking about inflation. Inflation is the pursuit of too much money chasing too few goods. Until 1971, which coincidentally was the year that I was born, until 1971, this country was on the gold standard. That means that if you saved up your $160 a week, and at the end of the 6 weeks you had $960, at the end of that, you could go out and you could buy whatever you could have bought for $960 at the start, you could still buy it at the end. But since we went off the gold standard in 1971, the Federal Reserve has now been free to print as much currency as it wants without adding any production to the economy. So now you have an economy that can grow its industrial production. The United States, any mature economy, can really only grow at maybe 2 or 3% per year, right? There's a certain amount of assets in the country, there's a certain amount of plants, there's a certain amount of property, a certain amount of equipment. You can only grow that production. You can only increase your level of productivity by maybe 2 or 3% per year. The Federal Reserve, however, has been blowing up the money supply at a rate of roughly 11% per year. So that means every year the middle class gets squeezed. Everybody gets squeezed, but it really hits the middle class the worst. Every year there's more and more money being printed up. And if you think about this over time, this TV set that originally costed you $960 will, if you're growing the money supply at 11% per year, if you assume that technology is constant, which I know it is not, but just for the sake of this discussion, assume that technology is constant, then this 11% per year will cause prices to double in roughly 7 years, right? Because of the rule of 72. So now, at the end of, if you happen to have to wait 7 years to save up enough money to buy a television set, instead of $960, it's going to cost you $1,900. That means you have to work another 6 weeks just to pay for this inflation. The whole idea is that the Federal Reserve has the ability to print money without bringing resources to back up that production. When you earn money, when you go to the Gap or you go to Home Depot or you go to McDonald's or wherever you go to earn money, you put in an hour of your time, the company gives you $8, right? You put in another hour, you get another $8. You put in another hour, you get another $8. So you are providing some value to the economy in exchange for the money that you're getting, right? The Federal Reserve does not provide any value to the economy in exchange for the money that it is getting. All they do is print up the dollar. How nice, how great would it be if we all had a printing press in our back pocket or in our homes, and we could just print up a $20 bill, take that $20 and go out and spend it. That would be great, right? Because you wouldn't have to work, you wouldn't have to do anything. You could just print up a $20 bill, go out, buy a pizza, do whatever you want to do, see a movie, come home, that would be the end of it. You wouldn't have to work, you wouldn't have to go to school. That's effectively what the Federal Reserve does. The Federal Reserve prints money without providing corresponding resources. It doesn't own anything, it doesn't own any production, it does not provide any labor, it doesn't do anything. All it does is prints up money. And then, once they print up this money, then they decide, oh, I think we'll buy some government bonds with it. Or we'll buy some mortgage bonds with it, because we want to take down mortgage prices. We want to support the mortgage market. So we're going to buy some of these commercially mortgage-backed securities. We're going to buy treasuries because we want treasury interest rates to come down. We're going to support the treasury market. But in reality, they're not really providing any resources to the economy. You guys, people, everybody who works and earns a salary are the ones who have earned this money. And if you want to hold it, let's just say that you had bought, thinking that we were on the gold standard, instead of exchanging your $20 for an ounce of gold, let's just say that your grandfather made a lot of money and just held it in US currency form. Let's just say he held $20 for you and he wanted to give it to you, when you graduated college, and he earned it before gold was confiscated. Well, that $20 from 50, 75, 100 years ago is not going to buy the same thing that it's going to buy today, right? Prices for everything are much, much higher. But in terms of gold, prices are actually the same. Peter, the guy that I work for, is a guy named Peter Schiff. Peter Schiff is a libertarian economist. He's an Austrian economist. He's a believer in liberty. I see a Ron Paul shirt back there. Peter was the economic advisor to the Ron Paul campaign in 2008, okay? Peter's point about the gold standard is that if you look at prices in terms of ounces of gold, prices have remained constant, right? If you look at prices in nominal dollars, prices have increased dramatically. So he makes the point very often that back in the 20s, you could take an ounce of gold, exchange it into dollars, which at that time was $20, and you could use that $20 to buy a nice kind of fine men's suit, okay? That's just something you could do. That's what a suit costs. It costs 20 bucks. Today, you can do the same thing. You can take 1 ounce of gold, exchange it for $1,200, and then go to, Macy's or whatever, Nordstrom's or whatever they got down here, and buy a nice men's suit. You can do it with that same ounce of gold. But if your grandfather had taken that $20 and today tried to buy a suit, he can't do it for 20 bucks. You can't even maybe get a shirt for 20 bucks. That's about it. You're not going to get a fine men's suit for $20. So the whole idea is, what is a store of value? When you earn money, when you save money, and you want that savings to be preserved in terms of what it can buy you, whether it's a suit or a flat screen TV or whatever you're trying to buy, what is a way that you can store your value and get back the same value at the end? What people don't realize is that before there was currency, there was only gold. There was gold and silver, right? That's what people used for money 100, 200, 300 years ago. There was no currency, right? A currency developed because people found it inconvenient to carry around gold coins all the time to buy stuff. That's why you have currency. So the idea was, and this is back, even before the Civil War, the idea was you would deposit your gold at a bank, and the bank would give you a receipt, right? That way, you could trade the receipt. You could say, hey, Meyer, I don't have my ounce of gold with me right now, but here's a receipt. My gold is deposited at such and such bank, so here's my receipt for gold. Let me have a fine men's suit, or let me have, some chickens, or let me have whatever I'm going to need, right? Let me have oil, or let me have, construction materials, or whatever, anything.